What you believe is what you become. That's it. End of story. What you believe you're going to do. And that's either positive or negative. And of course, you start to realize very quickly that the negatives aren't working to enhance your lifestyle. So you want to be able to change them. And that's where the disconnect comes from, because people don't have the tools. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know what the resources are.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello, it's Neil Ball here. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures and successes. I am so excited to bring you our special guest today, Kevin Stone. But before I introduce you to Kevin, I have a quote for you by David Brinkley. A successful man is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others throw at him. The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions, so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses. Kevin, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Hi, Neil. I am blessed and honored for this time together. Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it, Kevin. And now you've said that, I really am looking forward to it. So thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Kevin Stone has an impressive list of credentials and is listed in the prestigious Who's Who of Entrepreneurs. Kevin is a master hypnotist and a board-certified hypnotherapist and a recognised and sought-after comedy entertainer around the world. He is also a leader and pioneer, as well as a historian in the field of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Kevin is a senior clinical instructor at the Craniofacial Pain TMJ Clinic of the Otorhinology Foundation at the White Memorial Medical Center in Los Angeles, California. In addition to those accomplishments, he is a motivational and keynote speaker, holding workshops and corporate training programs for major Fortune 500 companies and others all around the globe, and is also a television personality, an author, a radio host, a retired firefighter, and an animal rights activist. Kevin, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about who you are and what you do?
Well, Neil, that's a loaded question. I'll tell you, there's a lot going on in my business and personal life. That's a combination. As you know, I'm known as the Hollywood hypnotist. I did not name myself that. That was named for me several years ago by a national television program that brought me on and discovered my work. Because most of my work, it's an interesting dynamic because it's confidential. There's two parts to my companies. There's two companies that I do run, which is Mind Growth Technologies, which is the hypnotherapy, lecturing, teaching company. And that side is, a lot of it's confidential. My clients are major celebrities, sports figures. So there's a lot of confidentiality in therapy. So it's hard to really discuss that when people want to talk to me about it. But there are a lot of interviews and television programs that I've done the work, and so I'm able to speak on that. And so that's the one side of my company, Mind Growth Technologies. The other side is called Deep Sleep Entertainment, where we do full production shows and comedy stage hypnosis shows. And basically, it's not a regular comedy stage hypnosis show as people would think that they are. It's more of an edutainment program. There's an educational platform underneath the show while everyone's having a good time. They're learning something about the organic, natural process of hypnosis. And so that's the two companies that I'm CEO of and in control of, and to really promote helping people to help themselves.
When I think about hypnosis and you talk about a stage show, I always think of I've only ever been to one hypnosis show, and I found that incredibly entertaining at the time, but I don't think there was any education in that. It was highly entertaining, but there was definitely no education in it.
Right.
So how does your show, can you just talk a little bit more about how your show is different to the type of thing I probably saw, where you get people up on the stage and they all do silly things and you're like, how did they do that? Yours is presumably slightly different to that.
Yeah, well, that's what we do as well, but we raise the bar. And what we end up doing is a complete total audience interactive program where everyone is involved with the entire show. Of course, there's people who are hypnotized who want to come up and volunteer, but there's also people in the audience who get hypnotized. And so we have a dual reality going on at all times. Plus, there are moments where I can explain through comedy. And as you probably are aware of, Neil, laughter is the best way to learn and teach. And so through the show, I'm able to say things or show things to people of how they can use the power of their mind. And so throughout the entire show, there's funny bits, comedy. People are doing things that that are just hysterical and didn't think they could do. And their personalities are really coming out. But at the end of the program, what I have perfected is a mini hypnotherapy session where it happens and people don't even realize, because when most people think about therapy, they think sterile, boring, monotone. And so it happens right at the end of the program where I give them very powerful suggestions to help change their lives. So what I offer people in the program, and most people know now because they've seen me on television, and I'm a global figure. So a lot of people are familiar with my program and who I am. So they already know when they come up what they're going to get. So what ends up happening in the show is I give them two suggestions. Number one, to have a good time. Number two, if they want to change something in their life, and most people do, that's why they want to volunteer for my program, they can change their life right there on the stage. And so at the end of the program, and again, it's like it never happened, because people go, "Oh, you did the therapy?" And I go, "Yeah, I did the therapy." And I give them very powerful suggestions to change their lives. And I'll give you an example. We had a gentleman, I did a large program for a corporate event about a week ago, and it was about 1,500 people at this event. And there was a gentleman who had come up on the stage, and I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about him. But after the program, I found the whole story. And basically how it went was his wife had just seen me on MTV or one of the television shows. So she knew what was going to happen. He didn't. And so she kind of made him volunteer to go up on the stage. He didn't want to volunteer. He didn't want to participate. He wanted nothing to do what was happening. And that's fine. But he did go up, and he was there, and he was probably one of the funniest guys I've ever seen in my 25 years of doing this. And if you get me laughing during a program, Neil, it's pretty hysterical because I've seen a lot of things in 25 years. So it's hard to get me to laugh. Mm-hmm. And so he had me laughing, and I thought this guy was hysterical. And I thought he was hypnotized before and he's done this before. So he just was just really relaxing and getting in the moment and expressing his personality. Well, finding out, he comes to me after the show. He asked me for the microphone and he says, "Can I make an announcement?" And I go, "Well, let me check with the coordinator just to make sure." And they were fine with it because he was the husband of the person who worked for the company. So he wasn't really affiliated with the corporation. So I handed him the microphone. He basically said, "I had the best time I ever had in my life. I didn't want to get up here. My wife forced me to come up here because she knew about this guy." And I was that guy at that time because nobody remembers my name, Neil. And so I got hypnotized by this guy, and I gave myself the suggestion, as he gave me at the end of the program, to stop smoking. Now, this guy went on to say he was a 40-year smoker, 2.5 packs a day, Camel non-filter, one of the worst cigarettes you can possibly smoke. Mm-hmm. He crumbled up his brand new pack of cigarettes. I think he had one cigarette that he smoked prior to the party. He crumbled them up, threw them to the floor, and declared he was a non-smoker for life. And I just checked in with him just a few hours ago before this interview, and he is still a non-smoker. So those are the kind of things that happen in my program as to why it's an educational, fun, uplifting experience.
So very powerful stuff. But you mentioned something there that I always thought with hypnosis that people have to be wanting to do it. And obviously with that story, originally the guy came up on stage and didn't sound like he was too willing. So is it true that you have to want to do it to be hypnotized, or can it be happen in any case?
No, excellent question, Neil. Absolutely, positively, you have to be willing and wanting. And this is what I tell people all the time, because they say to me, "Oh, you're a hypnotist. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me." And they get this instant fear and concern that something's going to happen to them. Mm-hmm. And that's their own, perception of what they see on television, in the movies and whatnot, that, sensationalizes hypnosis as a natural, organic process. And so if it was the case that I could do that, Neil, then respectfully, I probably wouldn't be sitting here having this interview. I would just go to the bank and I would hypnotize all of the tellers, and I would tell them to drop the money in the money bags and then take it out to my car. And then I would have enough money for the day or the month. And that's how it would work. Right. So it doesn't work that way. You have to be willing, wanting, and accepting the process, because all I really am, Neil, is a guide. Mm-hmm. I have no powers. I have no voodoo dust or anything that makes somebody go into a hypnotic state to do something against their will. And so it doesn't work that way.
Now, you've obviously mentioned an example of this gentleman that you had on the stage stopping smoking as a result of it. What other things can you do with hypnosis that can bypass, I don't know. I mean, that's an addictive thing, isn't it? Smoking, and obviously, so hypnosis can overcome that. What else can you do with it? That's
right. That bypassing, you're almost there, Neil.
Really?
The word you're looking for is critical factor.
I wouldn't have come with that.
Yep. To bypass the critical factor. See, the mind is broken up into 3 sections. So if you can visualize, imagine, and think, and I would imagine you can do all 3, right, Neil?
Yeah, I've been working on those things, yeah.
Surprisingly enough, and there's no judgment, but some people can't visualize, some people can't imagine, and some people tell me they can't think, and that's fine. So we find other ways to get around how they process information. I'll explain that in a little bit. So if you can visualize, imagine, think about just a circle right now, and I want you to split that circle in half with a line, horizontal.
Yep.
And so the top part of the circle, Neil, is your conscious mind, which you're using right now, and all the listeners are using right now to understand the information I'm giving them. That's about 12% of your brain's capacity. The line is going to represent that critical factor we just talked about. And the bottom part is your subconscious mind, which is 88% of your brain's capacity. Now, you might have heard simpler numbers like 90-10. They kind of simplify it when you hear it on the media. But those are the accurate numbers of what happens of the breakdown of our mind. So the 12% is what we think we use. That little voice inside of our head is what people think controls us, because if we think it, then it must be. But that's not the case. The most powerful part, as I've already said, is the subconscious, 88% of your brain's capacity. That's where we store all of the information in our mind that actually what we do every day is from that portion of our mind. So what ends up happening is when we go to sleep at night, we go into a REM state. That line we talked about, that critical factor, it now opens up. It's like a doorway. And all of the information we've processed from the day now drops into the subconscious mind and becomes a known. Now, mind, Neil, does not think for itself. It is all behavior is learned behavior. So back in the day, there was a scientist. His name was Pavlov. I'm sure you've heard of this man, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they came up with a test called Pavlov's dog. Yeah. And anytime, and they were trying to understand the psychology of human behavior through animals, and anytime he would ring the bell, the dog would salivate and be hungry. And that's how he trained the dog. If the bell did not ring, the dog didn't think to be hungry and wasn't hungry. Only when the bell rang. And so they came up with a magic number and how this worked. And that number is 21. Anytime anything is established 21 times in a row, it is now a known in your mind. Now, again, like I mentioned earlier, mind does not think for itself. So it doesn't matter if the information is positive or negative. So in the case of the smoker, he probably started when he was a small boy, and he snuck cigarettes out from his parents, and he started with his friends, and he got addicted to the nicotine, and it now became a known inside of his behavior. So he continues to do it not only because of the addictions to the nicotine, etc., but his mind accepted that that's an okay thing to do. Well, fast forward, it's become a health issue. He needs to stop, and so therefore they need tools. Hypnosis is one of the tools to help permanently stop the smoking because it gets into the subconscious mind. And so as the hypnotist, what I do is, again, I'm not in control of anything. Actually, when you're in hypnosis, you're more in control of what's happening than you are in a natural state. So everything becomes increased and amplified by 10 times. Sense of touch, hearing, smell. The illusion, Neil, is that somebody's in a sleep-like state and the hypnotist has this total control over this person and commands them to do things against their will. That's TV and movies version. The reality of that is when your mind is relaxed and when your mind is in that state, and how can I explain this so people can understand it more? Runners call it a runner's high. Athletes call it being in the zone. Mm-hmm. All of these things are very, very similar. Meditation, it's all the same process. And so when the mind is in that state, the hypnotist can create positive suggestions and remove the negative. So it's basically rewiring your hard drive. So it's like a computer system. So it's basically you're telling that computer what to do because you've already told it what to do, not even realizing it. And in the case of the smoker, he smoked over 21 cigarettes over 21 years. In that particular case, it was 40. And so therefore, it's a positive known in his mind. So my job is to merely get into the mind with the permission of the individual, remove the negative, and replace with the positive programming. So it's like a designer programming for whoever wants the service.
And you also mentioned mind growth technologies, and you also said some of that stuff's obviously confidential. Can you just give us an overview of what you do with mind growth technologies?
Absolutely. And that's the clinic side of what I do, where my private practice, which is located in Beverly Hills, California. And we treat over 100 people a week. And that's just not, again, I've become known of my work. That's what kind of put me into the spotlight because of my work with major celebrities, sports figures, and well-known people. And the word kind of got out here in Hollywood because, again, as big as people think Hollywood is, it's a very small community. And so the word got out, and, you know, people got on TV and announced my work and said who I was and all of that. And that's how my claim to fame really is to how my work got out there. But it's not, I just don't treat those type of people. We treat anyone who comes or calls for service, and whatever it is they want to do, they can make those things happen through the applications of hypnosis. And my work is really expanded with Mind Growth Technologies into not just smoking and weight, because that's what a lot of people think about a hypnotist about, is smoking and weight. And those things are very, very successful. But I've expanded into pain management. And if we have time, I'll tell you a story about a woman and pain management and how that worked. And it's so fascinating. And that was earlier in my career, and it really fascinated me. But pain management is a specialty of mine, TMJ, and just about overall anything. And I've gotten calls for all kinds of things that people want to work on, all the way from unique, odd things like I want to stop swearing. I don't want to have vulgarity anymore in my language, all the way to things that, like I said, pain management and things that are really blocking people's lives to achieve their goals.
So, you know, you've told me about this story about pain management. You've left me hanging there, and I'm wondering, what could this story be? I need to know this story. Please tell us the story.
All right. I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you the quick version. It's a very fascinating story. And it was earlier on in my career, and I was still trying to, you know, as an entrepreneur, I was trying to still understand, how am I going to make this business work? And how's this really going to, because back when I got into this, I went to college for this, and there's a college here in California, the only accredited college in the entire world. And I thought, okay, let me go back into school, get some college credit to continue to work on my degrees on something I was fascinated about as a boy and always had an interest in. And so I said, okay, let me do that. And so I go in, and I was, you know, as you get out, they didn't really teach you the business aspect of it. They just taught you the applications and taught you how to hypnotize and what to do with it. But they didn't teach you the business side. And the business, and I think we'll probably get into this a little bit later, the culture of it just was, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And so I didn't know how or what direction I was really going to go, or how I was going to make this work. But I wanted to, because I was very passionate about it, and I had already successfully helped a lot of people to do a lot of things with hypnosis. So I get this woman who calls me up. She had heard about me, and she was from Connecticut. And she calls me up and says to me, I've heard all about you, and I have this tremendous pain in my shoulder, and I've been to every specialist in the world. She was a very wealthy woman, and in Connecticut, there's a very wealthy, well, Connecticut in general, there's a lot of wealthy people who live there. And so she said, money's no object. I'll write a check for whatever amount you want. And I believe you're the one who's going to help me from what I've heard from the people I've talked to about you. And so I want to come and see you. I said, okay, fine. So we set up the time. I told her to take about anywhere between 3 to 6 days, depending on her. And she made the arrangements, flew all the way out to California, and we set up the time. Now, she had been to every specialist in the world. She had been everywhere. I mean, she had told me the unbelievable experiences that she had, and the resources and money that she had to spend because this pain was plaguing her. And she said, I was the one that was going to help her. And I thought, wow, I'm new at this. Well, I wasn't really new. I was probably 3 years in at that time. And I thought, you know, this is going to be an interesting challenge. And I thought, you know what? I can do this. And I did some research on it, and I really did a lot of work on my end, because that's that's what I do, Neil. I'm in the business of helping people help themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's my passion. That's my drive. I wake up every morning to do that, to help people. And so I really wanted to help this woman, and I explained to her, and she knew exactly everything. Everything was, on the table, and she understood everything. But she was convinced that I was the one that was going to help her from what she had heard about my work. And I said, okay, fine. So she comes in, and how she wanted to do this, and how she really felt that she had this pain in her left shoulder, was because of a past life. So she asked me, well, I take her in a past life, and can we correct the issue in a past life? I gave her my viewpoint on past life regression at that time. I'm not a big advocate of past lives. I'm an analytical, Neil. And so for me, I need information, I need fact, I need proof, I need scientific evidence, I need all of that information to convince me, to let me know that this is reality for somebody in a past life. I respect people who do that work. I still do that work to this day, but my viewpoint personally on it is what I just explained. There's no evidence to it, so to me, I don't quite get the concept. Mm-hmm. But it does work. And in this particular case, as I'm going to explain to you, for this woman, it was phenomenal. So I take her into her past life, and it's a classic movie story here in the United States, where it's a cowboy movie, where she's coming across the East Coast to the West Coast that's not developed yet. And midpoint, they get into a classic cowboy and Indian fight. So the wagons get into a circle preparing for the fight, and somehow she was told to go into the back of the wagon for her own safety. So an arrow from one of the Indians shoots through the canvas of the covered wagon and shoots her and gets her in the shoulder. Well, back in the 1800s, the medical technology was not as advanced as it is today. So, of course, they patched it up, did the best they could, but that's where the pain stemmed from. So we heal it in the past life regression. She comes out of the process, and lo and behold, Neil, she is now healed after, I think she was carrying that pain for 30-something years. She had been on every medication, every doctor, every specialist, every person imaginable. And through this simple process, through hypnosis and a past life regression, she's now healed from her pain that she carried all those years.
It's amazing. So obviously that's the power of hypnosis, the power of the mind to create, I suppose, something that's not pleasant for you, but at the same time, it's the power of the mind to get rid of it as well. That's amazing.
Exactly. That's how powerful the mind is. And like I said, there's a 12%, 88%, right? 88% is our subconscious. 12% is what we think we use every single day. We haven't even understood to this point in time the full capacity of our mind and how powerful it can be. But you can already see with the applications of hypnosis, an organic, natural process, how powerful that tool is to be able to reprogram your computer, your mind, to do exactly what it is you want it to do. Because look, Neil, we're doing that anyway. Because remember what I mentioned earlier, all behavior is learned behavior. Yeah. So we've already learned the behavior. So whether it be positive or negative, we start to realize as we go through the transitions of life and the stages of development that we realize, wait a minute, those things aren't healthy for us. And why am I doing those things? So we want to be able to change them. But then we start to search for the tools. We don't know where the tools are. There's nothing there for people to search for. But when they discover hypnosis, that's how you can change your life. And I did it the same way because I was on the other side of the fence as well, with a lot of people who are analytical like me thinking, how does that stuff work? I don't think that stuff works. And that's why I really went to school for it, to learn it, to try and understand it. And even trying to understand it, it's hard to put your thumb on it because it's a concept that it's like faith. Neil. You have to believe. You have to commit, and you have to allow it to happen. And so for me, the first thing I did, I stopped biting my nails. I was a nail biter. And I was in my 30s at the time, still biting my nails as an adult male. And I thought, this is silly. And so that's the first application that I used. And then I can tell you many more stories of the changes and the continuous changes that I do in my life with the applications of hypnosis.
What do you enjoy most about what you do?
I love helping people to help themselves, giving them that power, that education, that uplift, that wisdom, that knowledge of a natural, organic resource that they can tap into that they didn't understand. It's helping people to help themselves. I wake up every day looking forward for who's next. How many people today? How many people can I share the good news with?
What drives you to do what you do?
My passion is watching people transform their lives. Mm-hmm. Just from where they're at, what's plaguing them, what's holding them back, what's sabotaging them, just to watch that transformation. That's it in a nutshell.
Have you ever been asked to actually do sort of, I would word this, sort of unusual or strange things with hypnosis? Has that ever occurred?
All the time, because especially now, there's a great media push with the movie industry. There's a lot of movies about hypnosis. There's television shows about hypnosis, but they're still putting out there misinformation about hypnosis. They're sensationalizing it. They're showing that it has this power, and as a hypnotist, I have this power where you can control somebody and make them do something, and all of these things that they create. And so there's a lot of misinformation about it. So that stigma is still there. But the greatest thing is once people understand it and how to use it, because again, it's a natural, organic process. Mm-hmm. We go in and out of hypnosis about 1,000 times a day. That's how natural it is. So common forms, Neil, what I like to call highway hypnosis, freeway hypnosis. You're driving along, you're listening to this program, and you're having a good time. Your hair's blowing out the window, and you miss your exit. Right? Mm-hmm. That's hypnosis. Yep. Reading a good book, watching a good movie. I was in a great conversation with Titanic director.
James Cameron, is it?
James Cameron.
Yeah.
I did an event for him, and it was at his house, and we're in this great conversation. A lot of the questions just like you're asking me, and he's just so fascinated about it. And I turned to him and I said, James, you are really a hypnotist as well. And he looked at me all bug-eyed and just was like in bewilderment. And I said, yep, you are. I said, because what you do, James, with your gift, your ability, your talent, is you create something that moves people. You create something that creates an emotional response in people that they respond to. And not everyone can do that. And so what you're really doing, look, you're putting a bunch of actors and characters up on a screen based on a true story with that particular movie, which was Titanic. But people are walking out of there crying. They're emotionally touched by the story. Now, a lot of that movie is based on factual evidence, but a lot of it's dramatic license. So what are you doing, James? You're creating a phenomenon, a reality called hypnosis, that allowing people to experience that because they want to. And the ones who don't want to aren't walking out of there touched by the movie, because the analyticals like myself, Neil, are sitting there going, okay, this is a movie. It's based on a true story, but it's not actual fact. Mm-hmm. Okay, so to me, I'm not going to be touched by that, right? But the people who really believed it are the ones who are hypnotized by the movie. So that's how natural it is.
How do you relax when you're not working in your business?
I don't like to relax, Neil. I don't even relaxing is not relaxing to me. However, I do like to exercise. So I make time to work out. I also enjoy the calmness and the peacefulness of the night. And that's where I can catch up on my reading or the news of the day or just be still. And I always feel accomplished and content starting the day that way.
Do you have any entrepreneurial role models?
Yes. And the list is long, so I'll keep it as brief as possible.
Okay.
But in order of priority, God.
Okay.
I'm going to say all current leaders of major faiths around the world. James Braid, who was a pioneer in hypnosis. Franz Anton Mesmer, also a pioneer in the applications of hypnosis. Oprah Winfrey, Socrates, Plato, Mother Teresa, Amelia Earhart, Walt Disney, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. I'd say that's it for now. There's more, but those are the ones who stand out in my mind of when I really reflect on where I'm at and how those people created their entrepreneurial spirit and how they became who they became. So those are the ones who really resonate in my mind.
Well, thank you for giving me your short list. How many's on your long list? Kevin, you've told us a little bit about your business and your personal life. Now what we're going to do is go back in time and talk about the time before you were an entrepreneur. What difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business?
Wow. You're really taking me back a little bit, Neil, but that's awesome because the difficulties when I started hypnosis, and they still are to this day, but not as much. But when I got into hypnosis and put up my shingle for my private practice of hypnotherapy and started that way, hypnosis was still unknown. It was a taboo thing. Religion dismisses it. The movies sensationalize it. It's always been a mystery. People really don't understand it. And so to really try and carve out a career in hypnosis was extremely difficult back in those days because there wasn't a lot of education on it. And what people understood about it was, again, what they saw on TV and in the movies. And everything you see on TV and the movies is always, somebody hypnotizing somebody to do something against their will. And they had this amazing power over them. And then they would do what they said. And that's not the case. But that's what everyone understood it as. And even when I was starting out, trying to really open up my office, of course, my office had to be in somewhere of a medical facility because I was a therapist. So all of the psychologists and all of the medical people I was not accepted. It was taboo. And the work that I was doing was not accepted in the medical community at all. So the challenges were much greater back then because no one understood it. And I think, and I hope that people like myself have pioneered enough modalities and information. And again, that's why I do programs like this still to this day, because it's about taking away the mystery of what hypnosis is and really explaining to people that natural organic resource they have of their own power that they can tap into. And so that's been my promotion since day one. And I continue to do that. But that were the challenges back then. And even to this day still, Neil, I still get a lot of people. Again, ignorance is bliss. And when somebody doesn't understand something, they have a tendency to just discount it. And it doesn't exist. And unfortunately, because of the news and the media of what they've created about the work that I do, it puts that stigma on it. But it's also a good thing. And the positive of that is because it doesn't allow me to get lazy. So I have to continue to not only explain and have people understand. So that's the driving force. Which once they do, and then they start to experience it for themselves, then the rest is magic. Their lives transform. And it was the same thing for me. because I came from a background where I was raised as a Catholic boy, and in religion, hypnosis is a taboo thing. It's discounted immediately. It's work of the devil and all of this. And you'll continue to hear this to this day. And that's still some people's beliefs. And of course, when I was getting into this as well, my family rejected it. And they thought I was just going off the deep end. There was something wrong with me. And so I just had this driving passion in me to make that happen. Not because I wanted to prove somebody wrong. It's just that I saw the ability and the power in something that we already have that people can tap into. And so that's why I became a teacher. That's why I became who I am to this day, because that's my passion, is to help people, to show them you can tap into a natural resource that you have. I have it. You have it. Just tap into it and you can change your life. So those were the challenges, difficulties. And again, they're still here to this day. But I would say back then it was a 95% pushback. Now that's minimized in more than half. Because, again, the medical community has accepted it. Most of the medical community is now trained in it. I train a lot of the medical. As I told you, I'm on staff at one of the most prestigious hospitals in Los Angeles, the White's Memorial Hospital. And I'm training medical people to understand how they can utilize hypnosis in their practices.
Did you have any doubts that delayed you starting your business?
No. I didn't, because I've always had faith. Mm-hmm. And I knew, because I'm a man of God, and I prayed with God and I said, is this my direction? Because again, like I mentioned, Neil, getting into this was tremendous odds against me. And not only in my head of, where we can create fear and anxiety that can prohibit us and sabotage us, but people blatantly would tell you to your face, that you're doing wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. Why are you dabbling in the dark arts and all these negative things? But I had faith, and I followed my prayers, and I just listened to God and my own intuition as to where and how and what my mission and what my role was supposed to be for my plan and direction.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on self-hypnosis?
All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. All of it.
Okay, well, self-induced hypnosis then, if you rather than having somebody like you helping someone to get to that point, to do it yourself.
Right. I think it's absolutely a necessary thing and a tool that people should do every single day. A lot of people meditate. Mm. A lot of people do different types of practices. Of course, I'm a little biased to hypnosis, and I'll tell you why. Because when you create a self-hypnotic state, in which I teach that as well, well, like I said, we're doing it all day anyway, but I teach you the refinement of how to do it. Because when you get into a self-hypnotic state, Neil, you're in a positive frame of mind. Yeah. Instead of allowing the negative energy and the negative suggestions from the environment to affect your space. So what ends up happening when you get into a self-hypnotic state, you're creating a complete positive space where nothing comes in but what you program it to do.
I mean, I used that many, many years ago, actually, when I was a little bit younger, and I used to use it to sort of visualize my future. I sort of used to hypnotize myself and then actually create this sort of vision of how my future would look, and I must have done something well because it worked. Absolutely,
Neil. What you think, what you believe is what you become.
Yeah.
That's it. End of story. What you believe you're going to do. And that's either positive or negative. And of course, you start to realize very quickly that the negatives aren't working to enhance your lifestyle. So you want to be able to change them. And that's where the disconnect comes from, because people don't have the tools. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know what the resources are.
What mistakes did you make that slowed your journey?
The first mistakes that I was making was, and it was the irony, because again, I'm learning how to be a hypnotist, and a hypnotist is really creating that positive space and really programming your mind to stay positive. But because I'm an analytical, the analytical has a tendency to think themselves right out of situations because they're overthinking it. So for me, it was that self-talk. that doubt. And then when you have that happen, the next thing that comes in line is fear that gets in the way. And then you get this imposter syndrome. And you think, wait a minute. So you start to let that little self-talk that we have every single day get in your way. That will definitely sabotage you. So that was the mistake that I made. It slowed me down in the beginning. And I thought, how could this be? I'm the guy who's supposed to be helping people to get away from that. But I couldn't do that until I healed myself first. And so once I was able to overcome that particular challenge, then I really understood it, and I stopped it immediately, and that was it.
What are some of the things that you did before you started your business that will be helpful tips to some of the listeners who haven't yet taken the first step on the entrepreneur way?
Yeah. One of the first things that I did, and again, it was an extreme challenge for me because there was nobody doing what I did. The school was teaching us how to do it and the applications of how to do it, and teaching us different trance states, teaching us different modalities like NLP, dream therapy, past life regression, all of these things, teaching us all these great things. But to go out and to apply that as a business, there was no one you could just like model yourself after. There was no one that you could be like, oh, okay, they're doing it over there, so I'll do it over here. It was still an unknown business that it was kind of like what I would think. If I want to have people relate to this, it would be like the tattoo artists back in the 50s. There was like one guy doing it on the pier, and he was kind of hidden, and he wasn't really supposed to be doing it because it was illegal, but people knew about it and they would do it anyway. And so now I think there's a tattoo artist on every corner, and tattoos have become the trendiest thing in our population. So that's the metaphor I can give people to wrap their heads around, and how when I got into this business, there was nobody to talk to about it. And even in my own community, the medical community rejected people like me who call themselves a hypnotist and a hypnotherapist. And so for me, how I did it was I prepared and I studied the medical community and the markets. And I called just about everyone. And I asked them to sit down with me and have a cup of coffee and just so I can interview them to how do they start? Because in the medical profession, Neil, psychologists, most doctors, you don't see them advertising. There's no signage on their building. And even even my own private practice, we don't have signage on our building. It's not a common thing. And so I would ask them, how do I do this? How do I really get into the nuts and bolts of making this work as a business, as a therapist? And so I really started to get a lot of respect because the angle was the therapist. But once you mention you're a hypnotherapist, then that's when the thing would derail a little bit. But they understood it. And so I had a lot of people who were really compassionate about where I was. And I guess they reflected on their own time when they started out and put their shingle up to start their business and how it worked for them. And so it was really about the networking for me. And it was about reaching out and those people reaching out back to me, which really helped me to get over that challenge.
Kevin, we're now going to jump forward in time and talk about the time from when you became an entrepreneur. Do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business?
Oh, that is an awesome question, Neil. And I don't think a lot of people think about that when they first start out in a business. I think that's something that doesn't even resonate with people until they get like midway point where they realize that it's not working and they have to really reflect on what's happening in the culture. So yes, and more yes. And like I mentioned, hypnosis and hypnotherapy was a very small market and unknown. And for me, to be what it is now, because I think it's a little more mainstream, where people are going and calling hypnotherapists and getting help, seeking help for all kinds of things in their lives. Culture is a major factor, and the culture has changed so much because even when I started getting into this, Neil, we couldn't even call it hypnosis. We were calling it guided visualization. We were calling it all kinds of different things, but it was all the same. But people didn't want to hear hypnosis, so they wanted to hear that. And so the culture now is changed dramatically, where it is mainstream, and people, and my culture and the people who do this kind of work are really promoting it and understanding it even more. And there's so many more people now doing this. There's so much more training. There's so many people out there now really pushing the natural organic process, because that's what the world wants. That's what people want. They want to get off the medications. They want to get off of all these things that are not helping them and their physical body. They want to go to more natural, holistic resources. And of course, hypnosis is number one in that area. And so that's what's happening with the culture today. But and it's transformed so much, and it's continuing to transform. Like I said, now is a great the climate is so great right now because mainstream media is promoting it into a positive way. I think guys like myself, again, are out here talking about it like this and just educating people and letting them make up their own minds instead of what they thought or what that stigma was. The stigma is always going to be there. But I think people are getting more educated because they need to and they want to, because they want natural organic processes. They want holistic medicines to help them and not be on the medicines and all of the things that are being prescribed. And so the culture is changing dramatically as I speak, and it's such a great thing to watch from where it was. And that hard road that it was for me through those, early years to where it's at now. Absolutely.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out that would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
Neil, I don't believe in any shortcuts. There's no shortcuts in life. The moment you are tempted and fall into that trap, that's when I think things fail. You have to put the hard work in, and you have to, and from the hard work, you'll reap the rewards. There's just no shortcuts. And even if I could take shortcuts, because of course it did come and pass in my mind back in those days, because it was very difficult. I was in the trenches of, now new people coming into this industry and the culture, it's a little bit easier for them because there are programs for business and how to do the business. There's a lot of teaching materials on all of the aspects of the total entrepreneurial, if this is what you want to do. And so no shortcuts. Even now with the programs and the stuff that I teach, I even tell them, look, I'm going to give you a lot of solid information. I'm going to give you a lot of information that's going to help you accelerate your time with some of the things that took me, 1-2 years to accomplish. But that doesn't mean it's a shortcut. And the moment you fall into the trap of the shortcut, you're just slicing your own foot off. Don't do it. It's just a trap because you're just going to fail.
How much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
Gut feeling is I think how people identify it with, but I like to call it intuition. Okay. and that tapping into your higher power. And we all have this, Neil. We're all programmed to have this. It's one of the gifts that God gives us, that once you tap into it, you can really know, you can feel it. And it has a lot to do with the decisions that I make. That intuition, that higher power, that sixth sense, or whatever words that one wants to use, I really believe it's all the same. That if you really tap into that, but I think it also has to be developed. We all have it. But like hypnosis, you have to develop it. You have to develop that power. It's a muscle that you have to flex. It's like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym a week and you come out looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You have to work these things. And intuition is something we all have, but you have to tap into it, and you have to work it in your favor.
What makes you uncomfortable as an entrepreneur?
What made me uncomfortable as an entrepreneur?
What makes you uncomfortable now as an entrepreneur?
I would say now I'm very comfortable. I'll tell you what. Wow, that's a heavy question, because you're looking at a guy who probably wouldn't even have this interview back in the day. Mm-hmm. I was a very shy, introverted person that I just. My biggest challenge was networking and talking and just really having a conversation, and that was even with one person. And so, those are the biggest challenges for me. Is just to break through, which is the number one fear, by the way, with most people, is public speaking and just getting up and having a conversation. And so those are the things that were the challenges for me, is to really break through those barriers. And again, I did that with hypnosis, to really get to a point where I'm comfortable, and I'm comfortable with, a lot of the awkward things that have to happen, and things that people, you can feel it. I can feel it sometimes, even when, I'm out there doing a performance, or I'm out there doing a lecture or a talk, and there's a confrontation. Because again, hypnosis creates a conflict with people. The word itself creates that confrontation, where some people want to become confrontational about it, and they want to challenge you. I'm not necessarily wanting to be challenged. I'm here to educate, inspire, uplift, and help people to understand and educate.
How can hypnosis help people with the number one fear, as you called it, public speaking?
Oh, that's the easy thing. Again, absolutely. It's removing, again, that critical factor of what the belief system was, because again, all behaviors learn behavior. So therefore, you can unlearn the behavior. So hypnosis is the tool to deprogram the negative thought process, or the perception of what you think about that fear, into a reality of what you want to do. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they need to overcome that. Because as an entrepreneur, you need to get out there and network. You need to get out there and speak. You need to get out there and do programs like this and talk to people and let them know, educate them about your company, what your services are, to help them to make a decision on what they need to do for their lives.
What do you think are some of the secrets to success?
Other secrets to success. I like that question. I like that question a lot. Other secrets. I'll tell you my formula, and it's not a very complex formula. The secret for me, Neil, is I'm very spiritually oriented. My foundation is in Christ, and for me, I have always relied on that relationship with Christ, and I pray and I let him guide me. And it's really that simple for me.
Life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not. And many people say that the only constant in life is change. Kevin, how do you try to keep up with change?
Change is an amazing thing. It's an awesome thing, and it's a necessary thing in our lives. And I know we don't like it. I'm not one to say I love change. I like consistency, and I like things to stay the way they are. But I realize the power of change, and I embrace it, and I accept it. And how I do it is I'm a student of life, Neil. I don't, I read, I consume books. I love reading. My library is extensive in my home. It should be a library. I should probably open the doors and let people in and read the books. But I continue to read. I get myself into classes, workshops, and I continue to educate myself on change and life.
What is your favorite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
Absolutely. And I like the way you just framed that, because my list is long, but I'm going to shorten it up, kind of like my list earlier. So I'll give you the short list, and I'll break it down in priority. Number one, absolute without a doubt, the Bible. There's so many life lessons and inspirational stories in that book that have transformed me, my life, and my relationship with Christ. So that's number one, the Bible. For secular books, I'm going to go with Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Og Mandino, the greatest salesman. He's got a trilogy: the greatest salesman in the world, the greatest secret in the world, and the greatest miracle in the world. So those will be my top books.
Folks, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you are at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you've not already signed up, then you will qualify. Kevin, are you ready to speculate about the future?
The future.
Yeah.
There's a joke that I use in the comedy stage shows, Neil, where I have a gentleman come up and I tell him underneath his chair there's a big 3x5 card with big red letters, his first name, last name, cell phone number, and his street address. And then he starts to search underneath the chair. And the joke goes, I tell him, I'm not a psychic, I'm a hypnotist, and it gets a big laugh. It's kind of hard to translate as we're talking about it. When you see it, it's pretty funny. Mm-hmm. And so the future is always fun to think about. And I think that as an entrepreneur, I think one should always focus on the short-term goals and the long-term future goals. And that's extremely important in any entrepreneurial's life, because I already have projections. Doesn't mean I'm going to accomplish them, but I have projections of what I'm going to be doing from this point forward in 5 years, because those are my goals. That's the future. So absolutely, it's important to focus on what's going to be coming up. So therefore, you don't get overwhelmed or sidetracked when something happens.
What skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
What skill?
Yeah.
Just expound a little bit more on the future, though, Neil, if I may. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you this. I've failed in almost every conceivable way, and I've lost everything. Lost my family, my home, my car, my career, friends, everything. And my outlook on life, it was a turning point for me. And so before I lost everything, I was focused on my career. That's what I was only focused on, and what I considered to be success. But it was only when I lost everything, Neil, that I realized in my life and what my purpose was and what was really supposed to be happening. God really got my attention, and he taught me what was important. And it wasn't making money, and it wasn't my career, and it wasn't the things of the world. And I went through some very trying and rough times, but I've come back stronger, wiser, and more appreciative than ever. And I've become stronger and more resilient. And I'm still, to this day, impacted when things go wrong, but I can maintain my balance, knowing spiritually who and where my strength comes from. And there's a quote. One of the quotes that resonate in my mind, and it's by Colin Powell. There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure.
What skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
Oh, yes. The one thing that plagues, entrepreneurs, at least for me, marketing and social media, and keeping up with the current trends, the algorithms. I'm constantly frustrated with my website and the things that the trends that change so quickly day to day. And, for me, I can't keep up with it fast enough. And so for me, that's the thing that, the skill that we need to look at a little bit more to not plague us and cause me so much frustration.
In 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
Wow. 5 years. That's that future.
It is.
My answer is this, Neil. My greatest accomplishment is being a servant to all, to live life in a way that inspires and helps those to better themselves. And I want to continue to helping individuals push beyond their preconceived limits in life. And I want to continue to help others to achieve more than they initially thought possible. Neil, life is a journey, and mine's not over. So I think that the greatest accomplishments are still yet to come.
It's now time for 3 golden nuggets. Kevin, what is your favorite quote and how have you applied it?
Oh, that's easy. I'll give you a quote from Buddha.
Okay.
All that we are is the result of what we have thought. And the applications are obvious, I would hope, after this interview, of what exactly hypnosis does, how it reprograms your mind, your perception, your thinking, and how you want to do it instead of allowing the environment, the world, to do that for you.
Do you have any favorite online resources you can share with us that would be useful for other entrepreneurs?
Yes. Besides the what I think is most common for all of us, which is the YouTube, the Google, and all of that, a couple of great resources for me that I rely on because, again, it's about research. It's about again, educating yourself, tapping in. Some of the things for me is there's a website called the Wayback Machine, where you can pull up old websites, old information. So it's basically a storage place where they have all of this great information if you want to be able to pull it up. Harvard Business Review, awesome, incredible information with that. And there's also a guy named Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Workweek. Mm-hmm. If you ever start listening to Tim, he's got some really practical, hands-on information for entrepreneurs.
What is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
My best advice is really one word. But I'll expound on it. One of the most powerful abilities that we have, Neil, is to give love. And everyone is looking for their purpose. Many people ask me the how. How was I able to find my purpose? How did you become successful, Kevin? Why are you successful? And my success formula is really simple. Love God, family, church, country, and work, in that order. And my purpose and my mission, Neil, in life at any given time is to make the lives of everyone around me better. And if you're doing that, you will find your purpose and happiness. And we can show love at any time. Love conquers all.
Thank you for that, Kevin. Folks, if you didn't manage to get a note of Kevin's favourite resource or his favourite books, you can find the links on Kevin's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for Kevin or Kevin Stone in the search box. Kevin, is there anything else you would like to add about your business?
Yes, I would. My website has a lot of great resources on teaching yourself what we already do. Like I mentioned, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. But if you want to really learn the basics of how to and do it for yourself, the information's there. A lot of great resources on the site that just gives you information on what you can do in the applications. And of course, you can always call me, email me. I do answer all of my own emails. So call me and let me know. I'd love to see the transformations in people's lives. Again, my goal is to help inspire, uplift, and encourage people to tap into a natural resource, an organic process called hypnosis. And that's it.
Thank you, Kevin. And Kevin, thank you for coming on the show today, because it's been awesome just hearing from you about your journey as an entrepreneur, hearing about how you use hypnosis in your business, the Hollywood Hypnotist, but also talking about some of the powerful things that hypnosis can do and how it can help people to unlock them from things in their lives and change their lives, which is just amazing. But beyond that, you've shared with us some of your journey with us. You've shared some great stories with us, and you've reflected. You reflected on some of the things that you've learned on your journey. You've given some of your thoughts about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, and you've given us some great tips as well. So thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you, Neil. And the work you're doing, I'm fascinated about people who have a heart just like me and who are doing this kind of work to help people help themselves. What you offer with your website and this whole process, and people donating their time to give information to help people who are starting, people who have already been in this. I know I've become a big fan of your site now, and I've listened to a couple of guests that you've had on, and I've learned some things myself, and I think it's a phenomenal service that you're providing, and I'm blessed by this time together, and I appreciate it, and I'm truly humbled by the experience.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate what you're saying and what you've said there, and thank you. Folks, you have been listening to Neil Ball chatting with Kevin Stone on The Entrepreneur Way. If you have enjoyed the show, please share it on social media and subscribe to our email on the Entrepreneur Way website. Also, please add your comments on Kevin's show notes page on the Entrepreneur Way website at www.theentrepreneurway.com and search for Kevin Stone in the search box. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode tomorrow, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball.